What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 161 of Command This. Hey, no live stream tonight, but we're previewing the Eagles game tonight. Prime time, Monday night. Historically, we don't do that well. We're bringing in one of the best to talk about it. On deck, we got our man Jimmy Kempski from the Philly Voice coming up next on Command This. Stay tuned. The man of the hour, Jimmy. Thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, no problem. If you hear any radar detectors or turn signals, I'm on the road. So
that's okay. That's okay.
Actually, hey, what state down there is where if you get a radar detector, they basically throw you in prison for 20 years?
No, it's illegal here in Kentucky.
You can't have it in Maryland. I think you can have it in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I haven't lived in Virginia a long time. I know you can't have it in Maryland, but
I don't think they throw you in jail here though. But they definitely.
No, I think one of these states that used to be really bad because I can't remember. It was real bad.
You have a joint though. They put you in there for 4 years down here. They ain't messing around with this stuff.
Maryland just voted to legalize it, so
I'm moving to Maryland.
Oh, did they? Okay, because week 3 I had it.
Yeah.
On my way down there, so I didn't know if it was Maryland. I thought it was Virginia that you couldn't have it, but
the radar detector.
Yeah,
you could be right. I don't even know. You know what? I'll get back to you. It could be Virginia. Virginia is weird on a lot of things, man. A lot of crazy things. You can get some things just by living and breathing, and other things they make it impossible. So
that's right.
Who knows? But here we are. We're at week 8 in the NFL season. Eagles are 8-0. Commanders are not doing as well. Unfortunately, we're sitting at 4-5 here in the NFC, bottom of the NFC East. The NFC East is on a roll. But Jimmy, just starting off from your perspective, who are the 2022 Eagles in a nutshell? What's their identity? Who are they trying to be this year?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't know that I could really identify exactly what their identity is, because they've won their games in a wide variety of ways. So I think almost maybe their identity is that they can kind of be like a chameleon in that they've won games by sort of just pounding teams out. In the second half with the run game, they shredded the Vikings with and their zone defense through the air. They won an ugly rain and wind game at home against the Jaguars. They beat, of course, the Commanders week 3 by sacking Carson Wentz 9 times. So they've kind of put together this 8-game, undefeated streak, sort of in a wide variety. I don't know that you could really put your finger on, exactly what they sort of what their sort of MO is, which I think is actually kind of what makes them as dangerous as they are.
Right. It makes it hard to predict what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. Yeah, absolutely. For the inverse, I would say the Commanders, our identity, we think is going to be our defense. It's tending out to be our defense, but we have zero identity on offense. That offense, just second you think they're starting to do something, they completely do the opposite. And Scott Turner's you throw your hands up. You're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? But you guys are 8-0. I mean, your identity right now is winning. It's plain and simple. It's winning, and they've done a good job winning. People were sleeping on the Eagles, coming out the gate, starting off, and you guys you've played the part. The season's halfway over technically, and you haven't lost the game. You played some of the same teams we played, and you beat them. Like you said, you talked about the Vikings game. You guys took it to the Cowboys. You've had 2 NFC East games. You had the Giants twice at the end of the year, just like we do, and the Cowboys again. So it should be interesting to see how that plays out. But from an outsider's perspective, all things being equal, I'm talking football. I'm talking non-football business side, name brand changing. You know the deal. What's your opinion on the Commanders? And it's still weird to say Commanders, but I'm still saying it.
Well, I I kind of feel like they're the team that, as long as they have that owner around, you don't really have to worry about them. Like you're another team in the same division as them. Like, they'll win a division here and there. But I mean, the track record of the team since that guy bought the team obviously has been horrendous. And it appears that a lot of the high level decisions, I mean, we all know like the craziness that has happened off the field, but it seems like some of the high level decisions are being made or extremely influenced by the owner. I guess it was revealed recently that, I mean, when they traded for Carson Wentz, for example, that just made no sense to me, like whatsoever. And then when it was sort of revealed that, it was Dan Snyder who wanted him, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because none of the football people would have wanted to make that trade, obviously. So, I mean,
He
that's
was
just
going to
kind of
get
my
cut.
opinion of them in a nutshell.
Yeah, Carson was going to get cut either way.
Yeah.
But we
so?
made the trade for him. I think he was.
Yeah, I don't know that they were really bidding against anyone else.
A lot of dead cap.
Ourselves.
I bet they were.
Certainly, they didn't need to pony up as much as they did to
Right.
get him.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't need
And
to do it.
the funny part is you mentioned the off-field stuff and the owner and kind of late-breaking news. It's no secret, our starting running back, Brian Robinson, rookie out of Alabama, got shot in the preseason.
Yeah.
Missed a couple games. The team, the DC Attorney General just released that there's a huge statement coming out tomorrow regarding the Commanders. We don't know what that is. So the team, in their infinite wisdom, and no one believes it's the new regime. We believe this is coming from on high, like the highest of the high. The press release response to that, they said, why is DC worried about us when you have one of our players get shot in the middle of the street in broad daylight? It's like, you can't read the room. Seriously? Like,
man. It was like, now's not the time, bro.
That has nothing to do with you guys mismanaging the team over the past couple of years, because they're probably about to drop some federal charges for some other stuff and, revenue mismanagement, sliding revenue from music and non-football event sales, or game sales over to non-event sales. It's all kinds of stuff.
What if the thing they announced is that they're building a new stadium in DC and it's none of that shit?
Well, then they got us all.
I
don't know.
Off.
But Jimmy, getting back to the Eagles in football. So you guys are 8-0. And let's talk Jalen Hurts real quick. Is Jalen Hurts the real deal? And I only ask that because I like Jalen Hurts. A lot of people don't like Jalen Hurts. I like Jalen Hurts. Looking at his numbers from last year and then looking at his numbers from this year, I'm specifically looking at his accuracy numbers. So last year he threw for 61%, 61.3, and so far this year he's sitting about 68.2. But the crazy thing is, it's a kind of a weird tangent, is that the amount of rushing yards comparatively from last year to this year is significantly down. And I think that's, I don't know, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I feel like that's him maturing as a professional NFL quarterback. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I had my questions about Jalen Hurts, and heading into this season, I thought that there were a number of things that he needed to improve drastically. Number one being his accuracy, as you mentioned, and other things like pre-snap reads and such. He had a problem with just always looking to the right side of the field. Did not like throwing over the middle. He liked to stay, sort of outside the hash marks. So, all throughout training camp, there were a number of things that I was looking for, improvement from him. And I thought that he was going to be better this year based on what I saw in training camp. I thought he improved in a lot of areas. I did not expect him to be as good as he has been through the first 8 games. I mean, he is playing like an MVP level player right now.
He also has a lot more talent there, too.
Yeah, certainly the addition of A.J. Brown was kind of a big deal. Of course, they added Devontae Smith in the first round a year ago. So you look at like a team that has historically had horrendous wide receivers. They have that figured out now, and they have one of the best tight ends in the NFL as well. So you got those 3 guys in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and they've been phenomenal targets for Hurts all year so far this year. But Hurts' progression from what he was previously to what he is now as a passer he's grown by leaps and bounds. And the point that you're making about him and the rushing yards is dead on. Like, early in the season, actually, I would say he was running the ball quite a bit. Like he was over double-digit rushes typically through the first, I think, like 5 games or so. He was averaging around 12 to 14 rushes per game. Over the last 3, those number of rushes have come down substantially. And, granted, we're talking about games against the Texans, the Steelers, and I guess the Cowboys were before that. So, 2 of those games were obviously against, pretty crappy opponents. But, he has sort of won from the pocket more often more recently than he did earlier in the season. And I do think that's a sign of growth and maturity. You look at like his yards per carry, which are way down compared to like a year ago. He's at like 3 point something. I think that's a little misleading because there's a lot of QB sneaks in there, and then there's actually like quite a few kneel downs in there as well. So like I think he's every bit the runner that he has always been, but he's just grown as a passer and made himself all the more difficult to defend.
Yeah, he's looking at his rushing numbers this year, 88 rushes for 326 yards. Still has 6 touchdowns, which is very important, but he's only averaging 3.7 yards per attempt as opposed to 5.6 last year, just like you said. But those rushing touchdowns are huge because in the red zone, you don't know what he's going to do. It's just another option on the table. And
right.
I really wish Devontae Smith would stay consistent because I have him on 3 of my fantasy teams, and it seems up and down, up and down, up and down.
Don't get consistent against us though, Sunday.
Not on Sunday. And so in the offseason, we had the debate around here. We signed Terry McLaurin to a big deal, but A.J. Brown seemed to be, I think, the second or third receiver who kind of set the market coming into Philadelphia. Has he lived up to his big offseason contract after coming from Tennessee up to Philadelphia so far?
Yeah, he's been everything as advertised. I mean, you could see right away in training camp, it's like, okay, this guy is better than anyone that I've seen in training camps in like
Jalen Reagor, Nelson Aguilar, those other first round picks in the past.
Yeah, I mean, like Deshaun Jackson in his heyday, you could look at him in training camp and be like, wow, that guy's impressive. But this guy is on a different level in terms of just the different variety of ways that he can beat you. I think people have always thought of him. I certainly always thought of him before he joined the Eagles as a guy that, would catch balls over the middle of the field, in the short areas of the field, and was a monster in terms of getting yards after the catch. But he has shown actually over the course of his career, but especially this year, being a deep threat down the field, where he's caught a lot of bombs down the field from Jalen Hurts. I think he had like 1 touchdown the first 5 or so games of the season, and he's had 5 over the last 3 games. Mm-hmm. So he's really started to catch fire in terms of being able to get into the end zone. But yeah, he's been everything as advertised. I mean, he's the best receiver that the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens, and they only had him for a little over a year. So yeah, it's a huge addition that Howie Roseman was able to pull off during the draft, and like we mentioned before, he's been a big reason for the advancement of Jalen Hurts this season. Yeah,
excuse me. That's good perspective. We like Terry McLaurin up here, and we debated in the offseason if he was worth the big deal we got, because it's always Mr. One-Upper when it comes to contracts. And Dev and I kind of argued that he's the highest paid non-Pro Bowl, non-All-Pro wide receiver out there. But from your perspective, How do you guys view Terry McLaurin? Do you think he's as good as a lot of our fans think he is?
Yeah. So I remember back. Before they had anything else, like it was like, I write like, 5 matchups to watch or whatever, whenever the Eagles play whoever. And, I had a little, I had like, I do those dumb stick figures.
Yes. Love them.
And I had one of Terry McLaurin just waving. Like, it was like, okay, Jim Schwartz, this is the guy you need to stop right here. He's number 17. He's waving at you. Don't worry about anyone else. Just make sure that guy doesn't beat you. And sure enough, like Terry McLaurin's had some huge games against the Eagles. So yeah, he's a guy that is obviously one of the best. I'd put him, probably in the ballpark of the top 10 receiver in the NFL. I think he's awesome. Hasn't had the luxury of playing with a very good quarterback yet in his career, and that's unfortunate for him. But yeah, he's pretty much I mean, he's clearly the best offensive player on the team, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, he's obviously a great player, and big reason for their win, obviously against the Colts with the play that he made down the field. And yeah, I have a lot of respect for his game for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And what is your guys' take on Taylor Heineke? Now, you guys have seen him last year, and now you've seen him not this year, but you're about to see him Monday night. How do you view Taylor Heineke? Because I want to see how we compare opinions of we call him Mr. Moxie down here. He's 3-1 in this in his relief of Carson, but it's not a good 3-1. It's more like an ugly 3-1. Like I still feel kind of dirty after winning 3-1, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I think a thing that reporters try to do when they're asked about a player on a team they don't cover, they'll find something nice to say. I'm not that guy. I don't think.
Yeah,
So,
that's okay.
To me, he's short. He's got a weak arm, and he can move around a little bit, but he's not Lamar Jackson in terms of speed, and he's not Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts in terms of being able to run through contact. So, as a mobile quarterback, I don't find him all that impressive, really. He can get out of trouble and make plays. He seems to have a lot of support from his teammates. His teammates certainly seem to like him. They seem to play better, maybe, when he certainly sparked that team, taking over for Carson Wentz after he broke his finger. So I think there's something to that, and I'm sure he's got some kind of leadership skills. But the reality is, he's just not all that talented of a quarterback. If he's your starter, you're obviously going to look to upgrade on that guy. So yeah, I mean, he's a backup, and that's just kind of what he is. He's fine as a backup, I guess. But he's a backup, and he's a backup for a reason. It's because he just doesn't have ideal traits.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's exactly how most of us feel in this fan base. There is something we call like the Heineke Hive down here, who just they just worship him and think he's the best thing since sliced bread. But most of us are about the same par with you.
Yeah,
he's a backup. He's a good backup, and we're happy he's our backup. But you're going to get these ups and downs. You're going to get these highs and lows. The goods are goods, but the bads are really bad, and they tend to be those back-breaking interceptions like the one he threw last week against the Vikings, which we had a chance to win. But that interception off his back foot just kind of crippled us, and didn't go so well. But yeah, you were spot on. I agree with you. That's what he is on this team. Just trying to get your take on Carson Wentz. Like, what is your opinion on Carson Wentz as not necessarily the drama and all that stuff, but just from a playmaking ability? How do you feel his departure from Philadelphia and on to Indianapolis, and then getting the news that he was coming back to Washington? Like, what's just quick synopsis? How did that all process for you?
Obviously he was the best player in the NFL, I think, in 2017.
Yep.
Injury killed him. I didn't think he was the same player when he came back in 2018. And I don't think he was the same player in 2019 either, when he had a full year removed from that injury or whatever. 2020, complete disaster, and gets traded to Indianapolis. Thought he was better there than he had shown in his final year at Philadelphia, and then they tired of him. I think we've sort of seen Jim Irsay have a quick hook with his guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it was a little overreaction for them to get rid of Carson Wentz as quickly as they did, seeing as how the craziness that's going on there right now. But I think that Carson Wentz is a very easy player to evaluate at this point in his career. He's got a big arm. He's not quite the mobile guy that he was at one point in his career, and he just doesn't change the bad parts of his game. He's just very stubborn in terms of taking coaching and not getting better at the parts of his game that need to improve. And the one thing that just was just vexing to me about his game was his pocket presence is just flat out horrendous. And like, what he did against the Eagles in that game, I actually said, like, this is something the Eagles should watch out for as pass rushers, is players will run by him. Like they'll run around the edge, and the offensive tackle will do a good job just letting the edge rusher take himself out of the play by running behind him. And all you got to do is keep coming at him from behind, and he will eventually retreat into a forced fumble.
Yeah.
Because he just feels it's almost like a player runs by him, and Wentz seems to think that player no longer exists on the face of the earth. And like they'll keep trying to come after him, they knock the ball out. He did that repeatedly throughout the 2020 season. Just holds on to the ball way too long. Tries to make plays that he could make in 2017, but has not been able to make since then. Like, do you remember the game? It was actually against Washington, where they had him corralled in the pocket, and he got out of he sort of broke out of the grasp of like 3 different defenders, and then he ran for a first down for like 15 yards or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It was that kind of play that made him awesome that year, but I think it also skewed what he thought he was able to do in his career going forward after he was, sort of no longer the Superman that he was that year.
Right.
And he just hasn't been able to adapt to the player that he is now. And
man, you sound like me when I go to the gym. I'm like, if I hit that first shot, I'm gonna be like, I'm back. And next thing you know, I'm pulling everything, trying to recreate that moment.
That's right.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So he's a guy that he's got like top half of the league talent, in my opinion. He's got a cannon for an arm. But I mean, he just has something in his. He's a smart guy. Like at North Dakota State, he came out. He had like a 4.0 GPA. His Wonderlic score was super high.
Yep.
But he's just got something in him that doesn't allow him to take coaching and understand that maybe other people have a good perspective on what will make him better, not necessarily what he thinks is best for him, and what essentially what he thinks is the best way to sort of play football in the NFL at this stage of his career. And he's just very stubborn about it, and I think we've seen the results both in Philadelphia the last year there, in Indianapolis, and before he got hurt this year.
It's funny that you say that, because we're trying to debate if we should keep him or not. So we can cut him this offseason with 0 guaranteed money,
Right.
0 dead cap. And I feel like you still need, I'm wondering if we still need to continue to play him to see if he's that guy, in air quotes, for the foreseeable future, because we could essentially have him under contract for 2 more years. Or we have Sam Howell, the 5th round draft pick out of UNC, who was a first round talent the year prior. Or Taylor Heineke. So we don't know what to do, but I feel we have to figure out if it's Sam Howell or Carson Wentz. We know how Taylor Heineke's story ends. It's Rudy. It's a great story. Yay, it's fun, but it's not going to get you anywhere. So we have some evaluation to do, and I don't know if Carson's down in that equation or not, especially after how you just described, his mantra and what we can expect from him, because we've seen that so far in his first 4 starts.
I feel like it's an incomplete though, because the line is so shitty.
Right.
I mean, there's so. I mean, like when we played you guys, we were talking about when you were out. We played you guys the first game. I think we had 4 starting offensive linemen out, 3 out for the season at that point. We're on IR. So I'm like, man, how can you evaluate that against the Eagles, man? They're going to sack a good line a few times. What do you think when you're out there with JV guys, blocking? It's kind of hard. And the 2 games before that lineman went out, he just went up 300 yards. So it's always like you said, it's always a mixed bag, right? You can still see. I feel like some of him is kind of Jeff George or Jay Cutler. Like some of him is in there, man. Some of Jeff George and Jay Cutler is in there and Wentz, dog. That big crazy arm, but you just don't know, why aren't you good?
Yeah, I think in that game in particular, when they sacked him 9 times, a lot of that was on him, but you're right. The offensive line played badly too. Like Roulier was out. I know that. I think
all of them were out, bro. Every one of them were out except for Leno.
Well, Leno, and Norwell, I think, have started every game so far, right?
Oh, my bad, Norwell. I forgot that guy. You're right. Oh my God. Yeah. He got the Duke award for that game, right? Is that why I invented it?
Well, Norwell got wrecked in that game by Javon Hargrave.
He did.
Yeah, it was just a bad performance across the board. But you're right. Like the offensive line didn't do Carson Wentz any favors.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you think about who Carson played. He played you guys in Dallas, and at the
right.
Heineke's playing the Bears. Green Bay's terrible. Honestly,
Yeah.
Green Bay's terrible, and Indianapolis, they're terrible. So, and Minnesota is not the pass rush that the Eagles and Cowboys have. That's. I mean, I'm clinging on to something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the Eagles are clearly better than Washington. Ray Charles can see that. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like these rival games, they can go any way. They can go any way. And I'm like, man, you think about the game against the Eagles, even though all it was going against us, the Eagles still only scored in one quarter. And then 3 of those passes were like basically a mossing 2 guys each time. I mean, I don't think any team can survive on throwing up a ball over 2 guys every play, and it worked. And one of them was out of bounds, and they didn't even challenge. So I'm like, man, I mean, you never know. Football is a game of inches. You know what I'm saying? Like anything can happen. But if you take one quarter of bad football off, Washington's in that game.
Yeah, their defense played well in that game.
Right, and we're getting Chase Young back, maybe Dotson. Things could be, and 2 more linemen that we didn't have. So, I mean, maybe we at least give you some competition. I am not going to go far and say that we're going to beat y'all, but I'm saying at least I don't think we're going to get ran out of the building. Probably still will, but I don't think we will.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, after that first game, I remember in the post-game press conference, I don't even remember what Nick Sirianni was asked, but after that, it had nothing to do with Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and he just volunteered right off the bat, like, those 2 guys are really freaking good. It's right. Like he was like those that's a very good defense, and those 2 guys are really good, and Montez Sweat he named too, but he didn't even answer the question. He went out of his way to compliment how good those 2 players are. I think it's crazy how many snaps those 2 guys are playing. They're both like right around like 85% on the season, Allen and Payne. Yeah. And I think they're 3 and 4 in the NFL in tackles for loss. I think, what do they have, like 5.5 and 4.5 sacks or something like that?
They're also in the top 3 or 4 in pressure, and there's no Chase Young. And they don't even blitz. No one ever. They've never seen linebackers. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, we can still get pressure without Chase and without linebackers. Like, they blitz almost none. So I'm like, if they have Chase back, anything can happen. You don't know.
I think the path to victory for Washington is if one of those guys makes a big play, and I think it's got to happen early in the game, because they have, and you're right. Obviously, if they have Montez Sweat, and then if they get Chase Young back, that's a huge addition. Allen, Payne, and Sweat, there may not be a better front 4 in the NFL when all those guys are healthy. They have no depth. But so, like, if the Eagles are able to run tempo and they're able to have success in the run game and get those guys out of the game or get them tired, I think that's when they can really capitalize on that defense. But if one of those guys can make a play early in the game, then I think that's their best chance of winning that game.
Right, and Jimmy, but the Eagles one-dimensional.
The everyone always talks about the Eagles offense. They are ranked, and it's a lot of people say it's about yardage. So the Eagles offense is ranked 3rd in the NFL in yardage, but I'm a big, it's about points. They're 2nd in points for in the NFL. But flip over to the defense. The defense is 3rd in the NFL in yards allowed, 4th in the NFL in points allowed. Like, you can't ask for a better combination of a top offense and a top defense, because a lot of times in the NFL it's kind of skewed one or the other. For up here, I mean, you're top 4 in both. That's really hard to beat.
Yeah, they've helped each other out because they've gotten big leads in every game. They've had, before actually the Houston game this past Thursday, they had at least a 14-point lead in every game this year. They have yet to be trailing in the second half in any game so far this year, which is kind of crazy.
What's that like?
So the offense has scored. The offense actually in the second quarter, I don't know if this is still true, but like a week or 2 ago, they had scored more points in any one quarter than any other team in NFL history through like a certain number of games.
Half of them came against us.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't playing nobody though.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't playing nobody though.
So
the Cowboys had Cooper Rush playing. The Vikings didn't have Cook.
And it was also, I guess the other thing that that people will say, it was, primetime Kirk Cousins too in that Minnesota game.
Yeah.
24-7. Yeah.
But to the point, they're helping each other out because the offense is scoring points early, which gets opposing offenses into sort of like having to throw on most downs, and that's when the Eagles are really dangerous defensively because they pin their ears back and they come after the quarterback. And then you got playmakers on the back end in Slay and Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Those guys, all three of them have at least 3 interceptions. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is leading the NFL in 5 interceptions. And then, of course, when they're getting those turnovers, they're putting the Eagles' offense in a position to put points on the board on a short field. So the offense and defense are sort of feeding off of each other. And that's why you see both of those teams, both sides of the ball ranked so highly in points scored and points allowed.
Yeah, let's get to the injury report real quick, Jimmy. I know looking at yesterday's and today's Monday and Wednesday's reports for the Eagles, pretty healthy. The only people they have on the report, at least Sunday, was Jaden Graham, undisclosed, questionable for Week 10, and then on Monday, Josiah Scott, cornerback, questionable for Week 10 with the ankle. I haven't seen anything else published for Tuesday or Wednesday, but is there any other major injuries that will affect any major player coming out for a Monday night game?
Yeah, I think the one that hurt them against Houston last week on Thursday night was Jordan Davis, their first round pick, who he's 6'6", 340,
yep.
And they plug him in the middle of the defense and
monster.
They prioritize stopping the pass, so they don't like putting guys in the box. They like having lighter boxes and defending the pass. But in able to do that, you got to have having that guy in the middle of the defense makes a big difference because he allows you to not have to put a lot of guys in the box. And with him out, they got gashed by Damian. What's his name? Damian Pierce.
The running back. Yep.
They had 140 rushing yards against the Eagles, so that's a concern. And then the other concern with the Eagles defense, I guess, is just overall tackling has not been great in a number of games. So, getting back to the injuries, I would say the biggest injury that they have right now is Jordan Davis being out and their concerns both in terms of the run game and then, if once runners get ahead of steam, they've done a bad job tackling in a number of games.
Okay, that's fair. And I want to talk about an article that you wrote. Actually, you dropped it today. We normally do a segment here when we're doing our enemy intel, looking at the opponent. We call it, basically players to watch for. But you wrote an article today, kind of covering that same thing. 5 matchups to watch.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could do a quick synopsis of that. So first, you talked about the Eagles pass rush versus the Commanders offensive line. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, as you guys mentioned earlier, I mean, the Commanders' offensive line has been great, and they've had 7 different offensive line combinations in 9 games. So when you don't have that continuity going, that's gonna make it difficult to block a defense that's gotten after the quarterback as well as the Eagles have. Obviously the Eagles sacked Carson Wentz as I mentioned 9 times in that first matchup. I don't think we're going to see that again, but certainly I think that's a matchup that's in the Eagles' favor.
Okay, and then you also mentioned Jonathan Gannon versus Taylor Heineke, and I love how the fact that you talked about Taylor Heineke's 50-50 balls, because Dev and I, we call them just close your eyes and throw the ball and pray that Terry McLaurin or Curtis Samuel will bail you out, because that's what happens every single time. And some people think it's designed that way, and it's not. Those guys, a real quarterback with a real arm would hit those guys in stride.
Because they're open when you let it go.
But
they're open when you let it go.
Turns out to be a jump ball every time. But
he's not throwing bad.
I'll tell you what, the one throw that he did make was against the Packers, where he hit McLaurin down the right side of the field. I think it was.
That was a great.
That was a nice throw.
Yeah.
The other, so he's got 3 completions of over where the ball traveled more than 30 yards down the field. That was one of them, and then the other 2 were the Curtis Samuel play this past week where the referee basically interfered with the Vikings.
But if you watch the replay of that, he's behind them dudes. He just ain't got the arm. He's behind every one of them. And then he throws it, and they all just waiting on it.
He did it last week
His
against the Colts too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a broken play, and that was woefully underthrown. And
Yeah, but he was behind him. Yeah, because he was behind him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the next matchup, you said the Eagles offensive line versus the Commanders defensive line. I know we kind of hit on it, but what can we expect from the Eagles offensive line?
Yeah, so they have a luxury in that, well, I guess maybe they thought they did, but Lane Johnson, in my opinion, is like one of the best players in the NFL. It's like a crime how undervalued, I think, or underappreciated he is around the league. The one problem spot they've had this year, though, has been a left tackle in Jordan Mailata, who, I'm sure you guys know his story where he was a rugby player and never played an NFL game, never played an organized football game in his life. His first organized football game ever was in an NFL game. So, that's just flat out insane.
It's insane.
He has gotten substantially better every year of his career, but I think he's actually taken a little bit of a step back this year. He's got a shoulder injury right now, and I think that's affected his play, but he's been vulnerable on that left side. So if Chase Young comes back and he isn't rusty, isn't still feeling the effects of of his injury from a year ago, then that is a matchup that I think that they can take advantage of. But overall, the Eagles' offensive line, I think, is widely regarded as one of, if not the best offensive lines in the NFL. They're strong, obviously, in the interior with Dickerson and Kelsey and Isaac Seumalo and Lane. Like I mentioned, Lane Johnson just shuts down whoever he's facing off against. But again, like I said, Jordan Mailata, I think, is the one liability potentially that can be taken advantage of. More so, you're not running through that guy. There's a brick wall, but he is a little bit susceptible to speed rushers.
Okay. Oh, and for the record, you're right. It's Virginia that will basically throw you in jail for life for having a radar ticket. It's the only state. It's the only state in the country that it has laws like that. So you're right. Okay. Getting on to the next matchup, Eagles empty sets versus Jack Del Rio, and that's Jack with the Q. I love the touch. Good on you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, the empty sets just killed him. I have video in that article, so it's kind of difficult to describe what essentially how they sort of exposed the Commanders' defense in that game. But basically, anything they tried to do to stop those empty sets did not go well. When they went in zone, the Eagles receivers were just kind of taking advantage of the middle of the field against those linebackers. And then when they adjusted and they went to man, the Eagles just started basically killing them with man beaters, and that's how they scored a number of their touchdowns. One touchdown in particular from an empty set was when they were in the red zone. They put Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the same side of the field, and it was basically a 3-on-2 situation, and both the defenders sort of went in the same direction as Devontae and left A.J. Brown wide open for a quick slant. It's just that's kind of one example of how they were sort of able to expose the Commanders' defense. So they got to have a better answer for those empty sets in this game. I imagine they will.
I believe it's going to be Curl. He didn't play that game, right?
No, Cam Curl was injured during that span of games. So
so that'll help too, I imagine. But yeah, they're going to have a better schematic plan to be able to sort of, they need a better plan to stop those empty sets, because the Eagles just did whatever they wanted to get when they went to those empty sets.
Yep, exactly. And then the last matchup, Dallas Goedert versus the Washington linebackers.
Yeah, I actually looked at after I published that article. Actually, I was curious what kind of numbers they've allowed to tight ends this year, and Goddard's the only tight end that actually has a touchdown against them, or so that this fantasy football website says.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and they have also only given up like 270 something yards to tight ends this season,
which is historically opposite, because usually tight ends destroy them.
And 100 something came last game with Hawkinson.
Yeah. Sure did. And so two last things for you, Jimmy. So what do the Commanders have to do to win this game?
Pray.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, pray.
They're 11-point underdogs for a reason.
Yeah, 11-point underdogs. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like I said before, that you got to hope that those guys along the defensive line are able to make a big play and force a turnover. I do like the way some guys in their secondary have played. You just mentioned Cam Curl was a good player, wasn't playing in that first game. I think St. Just has had a good year, or at least he hasn't in games that I've watched. Or
he's moved outside.
against the
He
Eagles.
wasn't playing outside against the Eagles last time. He's outside this time.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think I think it all starts with that, really talented defensive line, and can they make a play early before this Eagles offense tires them out. So that, I think that's the easiest. I think that's the most obvious path to victory for the Commanders in this game. And then offensively, I think that the way you can beat the Eagles potentially is to get the run game going, and you can only really do that if you get an early lead, because if you don't, you're kind of forced to put it through the air, and then that's when the Eagles defense will just kill you. So big play from the D-line early, and then get that run game going. Hope the Eagles are off their game on their tackling. That's the way they can win that game.
Okay, that's fair. And then closing out here, you wrote an article on it. We'll post this. We'll post the link down in the description here. But your experience at FedEx Field this year with the food and the parking going a half mile away, it didn't get a very, very good review from you. Not like it's gotten a good review before, but compared to some of the other 7 places you went to, you mentioned specifically Houston had some pretty good, some eats and snacks and stuff.
Yeah.
So FedEx Field didn't do too hot, huh?
Yeah, actually, Houston this past Thursday was the last city that I had not gone to, or it's the last city that I've been to every NFL city, and
That's impressive.
I can say with 100% certainty that FedEx Field is the worst stadium in the NFL by a country mile. I mean, it's not even the press box. Also horrible. The press box is so bad that I guess so the Eagles radio team, which is Merrill Reese and Mike Quick, they did not want to go to games this year. I guess they wound up going to FedEx Field. They figured that they're better off calling the game, just watching the TV from some studio. They actually wound up going this year, but they did skip like a year or two ago. They just said, we're not going because the press box is so horrible. Like, I don't know if you guys have been in there before, but
no,
you're basically in the corner of the end zone, but you're pretty far. You're actually kind of far down. Like, there are some stadiums where you are way, way, way up in the rafters, like that. The Superdome is like that. The Raiders Stadium is like that. Houston's like that. You're actually pretty far down, which normally is okay if like you're near midfield. But when you're in the corner of the end zone, you can't see like what's going on the opposite side of the field, particularly like when they get down in the red zone, obviously. And the TV monitors in the press box like also horrible. So even if you can't see what happens during the game, like on the field, it's hard to even see like on the TVs, like what happened, like when on like the delayed TV feed. And then the food, good Lord, just
what do they serve?
It's just, I mean, it's
Pig
different
feet.
every time. There was one time, like a year ago, they served this chicken that looked like it had a face on it. Like,
oh shit! What was
like,
it?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I skipped last year because there was a COVID spike at the time.
We had it real bad towards the end of the year.
The year before, there was this disgusting chicken. They had disgusting chicken this year too. Pete Haley sent me a picture of their food last year, so I could sort of include it in my press box food spread reviews. But yeah, their food spread is also consistently, like basically the worst in the NFL as well. So like they kind of get, it's just, and I think like, it sounds kind of dumb or whatever, but when you have a terrible stadium and the parking situation sucks and the food sucks, you know what that's a reflection of? The owner, which is
it is.
So
why can't
what it is?
It would be such a simple thing to do, right? Because I was talking to a friend earlier, I was sharing your article with another one of our hosts. He was like, well, I wasn't tracking this, and do other stadiums do this? I'm like, yeah, they do. Look at the article, look at the pictures, and we do so many things wrong. Now we are steering the course. The new front office is doing a lot of things right. It's much better, but any sort of positive press is good. So something so little as having a great food selection could go such a long way with people like you and the other visiting press. Not to mention we moved the parking a half mile away, but you could have had some other stuff. Now I was looking at the menu that we serve versus some of the menus that others serve. Salad, fruit, scrambled eggs, sausage patties, chicken parm, lemon and pepper potatoes that you said were
Oh,
great.
that's right. The chicken parm. That's what it was. It was
Garlic
gross.
buttered corn, cookies and brownies, and assorted snacks. And not to mention the Washington drip off your YouTube channel, which we'll post the link to your YouTube channel down in the chat for as well. So yeah, good times. I always dig this, that you do this. It's just fascinating to see the different stadiums and
how'd you get started doing that? Maybe you said it on the last time. I wasn't here the last.
How did I get started doing the press box food spread things?
Right.
I don't even remember. I
asked Steve this. Is he a chef, or he just like said, screw it, I'm going to go check out all these stadiums, because I don't know which one would be more impressive. Honestly, it was like,
yeah, I couldn't even tell you. I don't know. It's actually a great question. I mean, we used to, like, me and the other Eagles beat writers or whatever, we'd critique the food, pretty much anywhere we go. So I think it was like, I just kind of figured, you know what, as long as I'm doing this, I may as well write it down, because
it's great content. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great
impressive, bro.
Like, see if people like it.
I like it.
And there are other guys like Ross Tucker does Eagles preseason games. He's kind of like a friend of mine, and we sort of go back and forth on who started doing that stuff. He actually started doing it first, but who does it better, and who's like the number one rated food spread critic in the NFL. But so, like, we kind of go back and forth on that. Yeah. So it actually has kind of turned into a little bit of an NFL coverage genre.
You should do a cookbook, man.
But yeah,
that do a cookbook for stadium food, or for like press box food.
You might be onto something there.
Right. I like that. Do it, man. It would be awesome. It'd be a fun read, because you could just laugh at what is your favorite stadium to go to?
Dallas. Yeah, I mean Dallas by a mile.
I can see that. They definitely. I would figure there are New Orleans.
New Orleans is the stadium or just the food? Are you talking about
the food and the stadium? With the food, definitely. I would think. I haven't been to like the Superdome or anything. So, I've been in New Orleans a few times, and food there is awesome.
So New Orleans food just in the city is fantastic, but
not the stadium.
But yeah, not the Saints aren't providing that.
Yeah, not even. What about the new stadiums like the SoFi, LA?
So I haven't been
Vegas.
I've been to like I said, I've been to games in like every every city. I haven't been to that stadium yet. When I went there, we were still going to the LA Coliseum.
Okay.
But the Vegas stadium's cool. Yeah, I haven't been to SoFi yet. I guess the newer stadiums that I've been to would be, again, like Atlanta is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Minnesota was new. That's pretty nice. What's an underrated stadium? Is Detroit.
Okay. Ford Field.
Ford Field for sure is been there a bunch of times. I like it there too.
Okay, awesome. Well, Jimmy, let's real quick before we score prediction. You got a prediction for Monday? How bad is it going to be?
Let's go 31-14.
31-14. What about you, Dev?
Commanders.
I think he said it. No, we can edit that, can't we?
We sure can.
Hey, I don't know. I don't think they get 11. I think the Eagles win, man. I'm not gonna lie here, but I don't think they get 11, man. I think they win by 4. I think it's 24-20.
24-20.
I think Washington stops their run, makes them one-dimensional, but it's still not enough to beat them.
Our other coach, Phil, he went 32-13 Philly. I'm going 31-17 Philly. I just guess
I'm the only one.
You're the only one.
It's gonna be at least close.
I got a 14-point swing on this one. Vegas
then we get upset. If I'm gonna go all out, if I'm gonna make an ass of myself, I'm going to make a complete ass of myself.
Might as well do it. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate you. This is our second time meeting. It's always a pleasure. I've admired you from afar from a long time. Love your stick figures, your old Chip Kelly stick figures. You used to just crack me up. That's how I found you. That's how I discovered you. And the other great content from the Philly Voice, despite being, rival teams, Philly, DC here. I still love the content, still love everything you're writing. I read all your stuff all the time. So, thank you for what you do, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit down and talk football with us, man, and to be the best team women on Monday.
Very kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, Jimmy. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, Jimmy. Take care. Talk to you later.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Jimmy,
good dude, man. Good dude. Yeah, we'll see what happens Monday, man. I don't know how
That
it's
guy
gonna.
has seen every stadium and eating food at every team's
That's
facility.
respectable.
That's pretty awesome on it. Not to mention he's a hell of a sports writer, but
Yeah.
on top of that, it's just so fascinating that someone would even think about doing that, man. What else could you do to, besides eat the press box food? Like, what else kind of cool thing you could do at a stadium other than to do that though?
I mean, you could go sample the actual concourse food, which is a little bit different because one of them is team provided food for the press, home press and away press. The other is what is their actual concourse food for the fans look like?
But I bet
Probably
somebody already does that though. I bet there's plenty of people.
There's plenty of people like just who go out and do that on a regular basis. That'd be a phenomenal read, but kind of get boring, and expensive. But you get a better taste of the city you're in. So, well, you would, in theory, at the stadium you go to. But what they do for the press is like they don't have to do a whole lot. Clearly, our team does the bare minimum.
Chips and dip.
So yeah, to see Houston go out and make all these really, really cool snacks and trinkets and the like gourmet food just for the press, I thought that was kind of cool. I really did.
I would love to read a memoir of his just food travels in the press box, man. It'd be hilarious because I'm sure just eating the food isn't the funniest thing there or the coolest thing. It's what you do when you're eating the food and the conversations you're having. That will be the stuff I want to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if I went out with you somewhere and the food was terrible, that would be a story in itself. I could laugh all day about we went to this place. It was terrible, Like,
you said it was going to be so good, and it was terrible. Yeah, it was awful.
Terrible. They had pig's feet, oxtails. I like oxtails.
Oxtails are good. Cow feet, pig feet, cow tongue.
I'm thinking oxtails. What is an ox, man? Is it just terrible?
I don't know. I've never had it. Don't ask me. I have no idea.
It's good. Oxtail's awesome. But I
couldn't tell you.
I wouldn't know if it's cowtail or oxtail, though. I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't either. I'm Chinese. I've eaten a lot of crazy stuff in my life that I couldn't even tell you what I've eaten. I wasn't trying to be racist. Spent time in Korea. I don't know half the stuff they fed me over there, but it was delicious and amazing. I don't know what it was, but it was fantastic. I'll tell you that, Dev.
As long as you ain't like poop or leash or nothing, or...
No. Yeah, that's why I got these things growing inside of me and outside of me. But man, this is a good episode. We love Jimmy, man. That was good kicking with him. Sorry, shout out to you, Phil. He couldn't make it tonight. But yeah. So no live stream this week. If you're catching this on a replay, we'll have the group live thread in the Addicts Facebook group, so be sure to tune into that and catch it there, and catch us on the replay. Hopefully you get to watch this whole thing and listen to Jimmy's words. It's very, we respect Jimmy a lot in his opinion on this team. He's not the traditional biased person. I really think he's objective in a lot of his opinions. So I've seen him talk plenty negative about the Eagles when they rightfully deserve it, and give props where props are due. So Phil, Dev, you got any shout outs?
Oh man. Once again, shout out to Jimmy. He's awesome. Fun guy, funny guy, smart guy. Good read, by the way. Also, check him out. The links to his stuff.
Put the links in the description after this.
But shout out to my girlfriend who's sick. We just left the doctor's office. Well, I still got on my work shirt, by the way. I didn't realize that until we started recording. I said, why do I got this stupid ass cutoff shirt on? I look like Black Joe Dirt. I'm like Taekwon Dirt or whatever the black version of Jamarcus Dirt. That's my name. But
Marcus Dirt.
Yeah. Halloween.
So first it was Super Jamario brother. Now it's Jamarcus Dirt. He's gonna keep rolling with it.
Yeah. We're gonna have a white beard shag with an S curl in it.
I haven't seen. I wasn't a huge Joe Dirt fan. I wish I had some lines to pull from it. I just don't. I got nothing.
I've seen it like 1 or 2 times, man. My girlfriend knows all of it.
I don't quote that movie like some of the other movies I've seen.
I do have a shout out since we're talking about movies. I watched the movie last night with my girlfriend called One Crappy Day. I guess it's an acronym for OCD.
Okay.
It's about a guy who's trying to get in the dating circuit. He never had a girlfriend because he's extremely OCD. Washes his hands like 20 times during a date and shit. So he eventually picks up enough courage to ask a girl out, and they hit it off. He ends up, kind of embarrassed himself and having to come clean, have OCD, and tells her, she's like, oh, I understand. I have someone to show you too. So she takes him to her crib. She's an extreme hoarder. You can imagine how this guy felt. He's standing in our house, man. And she's like, I cleaned up a spot on the couch for you. And it's like crazy. And it freaks him all the way out. It looks like an indie movie. Like I could have probably shot it on the iPhone, honestly. But it's a good watch if you're just sitting back with your girlfriend and saying, and I'm going to watch Black Panther Friday. So
nice. Yeah. Preview, right?
Huh?
It comes out.
Yeah, it comes out Friday.
Right?
Yeah, it comes out Friday. I'm going to watch that. So.
Fair. Yeah, I'll probably catch it eventually. Maybe not at the theaters, but I'll definitely get it once it hits Disney Plus. Can't wait to get that.
You watch Disney Plus, you gotta watch your boy, man. It's on there.
I think this is the final movie in Phase 4. I gotta go back and look. It's one of the final movies in whatever phase they're in before they kick off the next phase. And I forget which movie breaks off the next phase.
The Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's the first one in the new one.
Yeah. So I think this has been a great phase.
By the way, Andor comes on today. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't wait. When I get up here, I'm going to watch it. Andor is awesome, by the way. A lot of dialogue, not a lot of action. It's more like Rogue One.
Is it?
Yeah, Rogue One, in my opinion, outside Empire Strikes Back, probably my favorite Star Wars movie.
Okay. Well, I am still rewatching Game of Thrones. I'm halfway through season 3, so it's getting.
Watch House of Dragon though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It made me want to rewatch it again. I'm finding so many things I missed last time.
What season are you in?
I'm in season 3, like episode 5. They just
almost at Castle Black.
They're on their way back to Castle Black, and Ramsay Bolton just caught Theon Greyjoy and brought him back to the same place he was getting tortured. That's exactly where I'm right now. So it's so good. I'm picking up so much stuff I missed before. It's such a better watching experience this time than it was last time. After watching House of the Dragon, it's so much better. Highly recommend it. If you haven't done so, go watch Game of Thrones again. It's after watching House of the Dragon first. That's just what I'm saying. So. All right, we appreciate everyone tuning in, and please go like and subscribe this YouTube video, or if you're listening to it on the audio podcast, don't forget we are on Odyssey, Apple, Google, Spotify, anywhere you can get your podcast platform. So go peep that, listen to that on your way into work, on your way home, on your road trip. We really appreciate it. It's a very underrated audio platform. It's not just about YouTube. So cool. All right, we will catch you guys Sunday in a live game thread, and we will do a game review on Tuesday night. Stay tuned. As always, peace. And
so
we out.